You know, scientists have found that we benefit so much from serving that they've actually now described service not as selflessness, but as enlightened self-interest. Because we are the ones, by giving, we actually get in return. So how can we do that? What does it actually look like to serve? Well, you know what? It doesn't need to mean, or it doesn't mean selling all of your property and possessions, giving it to the poor and then moving to Calcutta and working in the slums there. You know, I mean, that's a huge act, but that's not what service is about. It's actually it's an everyday thing. It's our mentality. It's our whole orientation to life. And it can involve very, very small things, like becoming a ractivist. A ractivist? What on earth is a ractivist? An R-A-K-tivist, a random acts of kindness activist. You know, there is a great website and you need to check it out. It's called randomactsofkindness.org, and it there lists a whole number of things that you can do that just make a small difference, that can make small things that can make a big difference in the lives of other people. Do you know what? You literally can change the world, at least someone's world. You know, I love this story. It's of a boy walking along a seashore, and on the seashore is washed up all of these starfish. And as the sun starts to come up, everyone knows what their fate is. And this boy is walking along and he's picking up these starfish one by one. There's thousands of these things. And then throwing them back into the water, into safety, where they can live again. And as he's doing this, all of a sudden, an older person walks past and calls out and says, "Hey, kid!" He says, "Don't worry about it. Don't bother. It's no use. There's like thousands of those things. It makes no difference." And this kid looks down at the next starfish in his hand, and then he turns back to this heckler and says, "Makes a difference to this one," and picks it up and throws it back into the sea. You know, you can make a profound difference to someone. You can literally change the world. And it doesn't need to be on a big, grand scale, but it can be something small, but something small and significant to someone else. Become a ractivist. You know what? This idea of the fact by giving we receive is actually starting to take off. You know, people are getting this. Companies are getting this idea. Individuals are getting this. In fact, there's a growing movement of these individuals that we call half-timers. Now, these are people who have been incredibly successful in the first half of their life. You know, financially, through their business, their entrepreneurial pursuits. They are very, very successful, but they get to half-time and they realise, yes, I'm successful, but I want to move from success now to significance. And so these people, instead of being all about getting, they're all about giving. And there are some remarkable stories, like this guy here, Ken Young. You know, I love his story. You know, Ken, he describes himself as the T-man who is passionate about orphans. You know, what Ken does is he has been incredibly successful financially in the tea industry within the first half of his life. But as a half-timer, he goes, it's time to change the play. And so now Ken still is engaged in his industry, still does what he loves and he's passionate about, and is still incredibly successful, but starts to give back. He now runs an orphanage in China for over 100 kids. And these kids are mostly female, who are often disbanded in that culture, and who have physical and mental disabilities. And you know, Ken carries around with him a little sachet with 100 photos of his kids, of his orphans, and here is one of them. This is the photo of a kid who he funded to have heart surgery, fix their heart repair. Without that kid would have been lost. And you know what? Does Ken look happy? I'm sure he looks happy. He looks happy to me. You know what? I actually would even go as far as saying this has probably given him much greater joy, and he would concur, than the successes early in his life. From success to significance. But you know, there's one thing I want to say about service. You know, service has so much to offer, such an incredible value to it. But you know what? There's also potential pitfalls with service as well. And I just want to highlight them very quickly. You see, in order to serve well, you actually need to serve smart. And that involves three things. Here is the first one. In order to serve smart, you need to serve with sincerity. You need to serve sincerely. You know, on my office door, front and centre, is my favourite passage to live by. Right? This is my mandate. And I have it there because I want all of my students, anyone who comes to my office, I want to get them to see it and read it and reflect on it, because to me, it is incredibly powerful. I know it by heart. And this is what it says. It says, make a careful exploration of who you are and the work that you have been given, and then sink yourself into that. Don't be impressed with yourself. Don't compare yourself with others. Each of us must take responsibility for doing the creative best we can with our own life. You know, what I love so much about this passage is, first of all, it says that every single one of us, including you, has a work to do. You know, you have some unique contribution to make. You have a service act to fulfill. All right? So we all have that. But what I love about this passage is that it actually identifies the enemy to effective service. And that is comparing ourselves with others, getting impressed with ourselves. You see, many years ago when I first started doing corporate presentations and corporate speaking, I wanted to become a good communicator. I wanted to get my message across because I was so passionate about it. And so what I started to do is I thought, I need to learn this craft, of how to present and how to deliver. And so I would go and I'd watch other good presenters or other presenters to try and learn tips and secrets and how it works and what I could do better myself. And invariably, what I came away with from watching others was one of two conclusions. The first one was that I'm not as good as them. You know what? And as soon as that happens, as soon as you look around and you see, hey, look at them, look how good they are, and I'm not as good as that, then we become deactivated. Our ability to make our authentic contribution, to serve in the way that we're designed to serve, in our ability to make and contribute in the work that we've been given, all of a sudden we become ineffective. We give up. But you know what? There's a second conclusion that sometimes I came to, unfortunately. And that is that not that I was not as good as them, but perhaps even more damaging, that, I think I'm actually better than them. And you know what I discovered from that? As this passage says, when we become impressed with ourselves, I actually discovered a pattern. As soon as that started to happen, then for several presentations after that, it just didn't go so great. I started to fall flat on my face. As they say, pride goes before the fall. Because you become complacent. You don't strive to be your best. You don't take due diligence. And so what I've discovered is this. In order to serve smart, we actually need to serve sincerely. It's not about other people. Yes, learn from them, get support from them, but don't compare yourself with others. Because you can invariably lead down the path of not thinking you're as good or thinking you're better. And either single one of them actually disables your ability to make your authentic contribution. It's not about you. Don't try and be someone else. They're already taken. You are you, and you have a unique contribution to make. Number 2, if you want to serve smart, serve using your signature strengths. Psychologists have actually identified that we humans are different. Ta-da! What a revelation! It's like you sort of look around, you get an idea pretty quick that people are different. But what we actually know is that people have different character aspects, attributes, virtues, and different signature strengths. And there actually have been identified 7 character virtues, and stemming from them about 24 signature strengths. We're all different. And what the science is actually showing us is that if you can actually identify what those signature strengths are and then activate them, use them in new ways, it increases people's happiness. In fact, this is one of the most commonly used strategies for increasing people's emotional well-being. In this particular study, conducted once again by Professor Martin Seligman, or led by Professor Martin Seligman, they took people, and one of the experiments they did is they said, we want you to get online and do the test, and I'll supply you the link, to identify what are your 5 top signature strengths. And then over the next week, use them in a new and exciting way. People who did this found for the next 6 months increased their levels of happiness and actually decreased their depressive symptoms. And what's intriguing to me is that when they got people just to identify what their signature strengths were, not actually use them, just identify what they are, there was no such effect. You know, as it's been said that happiness comes through a deed. And it's true, we need to use these things, use our signature strengths. When I went on that Stormco trip, I remember driving the bus home and I was chatting with these kids as we're returning home. I said, what was the highlight for you? What gave you the biggest helper's high? What was the biggest buzz? And what I was amazed at is that they started to give different responses. You know, for some it was, I just going to that retirement village. I was chatting with this guy, this elderly fellow, and hearing his stories, and I was able to, and I could just tell that really gave him a lift being able to share this. He didn't get visitors often. For someone else, it was actually painting fences in the local park. For others, it was running the kids' club. For others, it was one young person who said, I actually helped liaise with a couple of shop owners in the town to all work together on a community project. Man, it was good. I just came away feeling really energised by that. And what I've discovered and what I believe is that serving with our greatest strengths gives us the greatest buzz. And so, if you want to serve smart, serve using your signature strengths. Use your signature strengths for good. And then we come to our final strategy, final tip for serving smart. And that is serve sustainably. There is a fascinating quote. I love this quote. It says this. It says, you can't pour from an empty cup. You know what I'm talking about? If you are dry, then you can't give. If you are empty, you can't pass on. To continue that analogy of a watercourse, I think service is a lot like that. If you think about a watercourse, it has to have water coming in and then water going out in order for it to be healthy, in order for it to be balanced. We know that if a watercourse only receives water but never gives, it putrefies and stagnates. Like the Dead Sea. That's exactly what that does, and it's Dead Sea because it never gives, it only receives. And if we're like that in our service orientation, if we only give, get, but never give, then we tend to putrefy, stagnate. But on the same token, if we never get, but we only give, then eventually we run dry. The river dries up. And I want to speak specifically to people who are like this, because I know that some of you are. You know what? If that's you, I want to say to you, it's okay. It's necessary even that you receive. It's okay to take time out. It's okay to have fun. To lift your spirits. You need to be nurtured from an outside source so that you can keep on giving. It has to be sustainable. Otherwise, you dry up. So you know what? To conclude all of this, in this program, we have been learning about strategies for increasing our emotional well-being, to help you live more happy. And what I want to say is that as we look down the list of the things that we've discussed, at the heart of it, I actually suspect that service is the most important and significant thing that you can do. Because I believe, and I've come to fully embrace, that there is a law that reigns supreme when it comes to our emotional state. And it just simply says, at an emotional level, you reap what you sow. If you purposefully and intentionally set about trying to drag other people down, you will go with them down. But if you purposefully and intentionally seek about lifting other people up, then you'll go up as well. There is a lovely quote. It says, I'll lift thee and you'll lift me and we'll ascend together. And you know what? I'll even go as far as saying, and I've given this a lot of thought, I actually believe that law of you reap what you sow at an emotional level is actually always returned to us in this lifetime. See, there are certain injustices in this world that seem to extend beyond this lifetime. You can see examples throughout history where people go through, a key figure will go through robbing other people of their power and then die with lots of power. Not that it does them a lot of good, but you can see examples of this. You can see examples of people who go through their life robbing others of their wealth and their money, and then they die with lots of wealth and lots of money themselves. Not that it does them a lot of good. But you know what? I am yet to see one example of a sane person who goes through their life robbing others of their happiness and then dies happy themselves. You know, it just doesn't go that way. At an emotional level, we reap what we sow, and it's returned to us in this lifetime. And you know what I want for you? I want you to experience a real fullness, a zest, a vitality, a joy of living. I want you to live more happy, live more up, live all the things that just make this life worthwhile. And so in that pursuit, I can't encourage you enough to adopt this service mentality. How can you approach life with this orientation towards making a contribution and not consuming? Which leads us to our last two challenges for this program. And here they are. Number one, over the course of this next week, I want you to become a Ractivist. Become a Ractivist. Every day, see if you can identify one thing or more, if you get excited about it, that you can do that can lift someone else up. Show a kindness. You might be something that you do intentionally, like today I'm going to do this, or it might be just some observation that you notice right now would be a great time for me to be a Ractivist for that person. So number one, become a Ractivist. And number two, I want you to get online, do the signature strengths test. We'll supply the website. And identify what are my top 5 strengths. And once you've identified them, I want you to use them on one occasion, figure out something you can do to use one of those top 5 signature strengths for good. And what I want to encourage you to reflect on, how does that make you feel? I guarantee it'll help you to live more happy.